Which is awesome. We actually have some arty stuff over here. Rebecca's been handing it out. If you like doing arts and crafts, we'll talk a tiny bit about it later on, but super cool.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Jan's going to lead us off.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming. I'd like to welcome you. I'd like to welcome you to Jeremy's presentation. I learned about this just kind of by happenstance. We were having this conversation. Actually, you sent me an email about it, I think. And my name is Jan Brown. I'm Pastoral Care Coordinator here. So Jeremy and his family have created something very special that they do in their home to honor their loved ones. And he's willing to tell his story and share the custom that they are developing, which is based on Day of the Dead, which is a Mexican tradition. I think you'll find it really interesting. We spent a lot of time on this. Do you like the food and the Mexican hot chocolate? So a year from now, November of 2017, Countryside is going to put on a Day of the Dead.
Something.
What?
Something. We don't know what yet.
Something. We're not certain how it will take shape yet. We are in the process of learning. And in order to learn, we're going to the Latino Museum in South Omaha on November 9th. We will be leaving here at 11:15 in the morning. It's a Wednesday. Sorry, kids, you'll at school. Yeah. We're leaving at 11:15 to go to South Omaha. We'll carpool. We'll have lunch there, and then we'll take a tour of the museum of all the exhibits that they have, and they have them up actually for a month. So we're hoping to learn a lot about what they do, and with Jeremy's help, anybody that's interested in going to the November 9th museum tour, there's a sign-up sheet over there by the bread and that basket, and there's also one over here on the table right by the camera. We'd love to have you join us. It'll be fun, and we'll just see how it evolves. So it'll be an act of creativity. Okay? Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. I didn't think about how I'm going to advance the slides, so this is going to be super awkward. All right, so You're welcome to stand up here, or you're welcome to sit with Tom. Cool. All right, Valentine's like my official collector of Day of the Dead stuff, so it's good that she's here. All right, so I brought a Bible verse. It's kind of an adapted Bible verse, so you guys will have to bear with me, in that I made about 10% of it up. But it's from Acts chapter 2, verse 1 through 8-ish. So a little more than 2 months after Jesus' crucifixion, and just 10 days after his ascension, all of his friends, his family, and his disciples were gathered together in one place. And suddenly a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. And they saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated and came to rest on each of them. And all of them were filled with the Holy Spirit. And they went out, and they told stories about Jesus and his teachings to everyone who would listen, in whatever language the listener needed to hear. So, like probably a lot of people here, I was born after Jesus had already died. So my relationship with God has always been the stories that were passed down to me and the presence of the Spirit. But for the people that knew Jesus in the flesh, that transition had to have been agonizing, right? That yesterday, if you had a question about how to be a follower of Jesus, you could literally tap the man on the shoulder and get like a concrete answer. So how could you be, what happened at the beginning of Acts is that transition of how can you be a Jesus follower when Jesus isn't here in the flesh anymore. So from a certain point of view, I kind of like to look at that as kind of like the first Day of the Dead. I don't think anybody else looks at it that way. Am I loud enough? I don't know if I'm standing close enough to the mic. Can you guys hear me in the cheap seats? Cool. All right. So last spring, we put our 5-month-old son, Daniel Frank Wadhams, down for a nap, and he never woke up. And in the immediate aftermath of that, our friends, our family, our church, his godparents, everyone was amazing. As a culture, we know what to do about grief in the moment. And the people who were with us during that time were fantastic, and we owe all of them a lot. So during Daniel's visitation, we brought Valentine and Madeline and his close family and his godparents, and we said goodbye. And while we were there, searching for what do you say in that circumstance, I tried singing him some songs, which something I do with my kids. And there's a handful of songs that you can sing at a slow tempo and in a minor key that are kids songs. Twinkle Twinkle Little Star can be super duper sad, or You Are My Sunshine is a sad song that can be even sadder. And I hit a point where that didn't feel right anymore. And instead, I sang him a stupid song, because most of the songs that I sing to my children are silly songs. And I think, and I'm not positive, I think what I sang him was the Truckin' Song, because it's my favorite silly song. Oh, I didn't put it in here. This is the Pentecost slide that I had. I didn't put it in here. My parents put together a wallboard. So the Truckin' Song is a song a friend of mine wrote. My parents put together this cool wallboard that's hanging in the playroom. And the chorus of it is, oh, and there's, and nobody's going to sing along, no weekends when you're trucking. It's just Monday to Monday all the time. Oh, and there's no weekends when you're trucking. You just sit around all day on your behind. And the whole rest of the song is that level of silly or sillier. And in that moment, I felt a presence and a peace come over me that I've never felt before or since. And the conviction that Daniel is still my son, and I just need to find a different way to be in relationship with him now that he's not here. And that's a big part of I didn't celebrate Day of the Dead as a child. This isn't a part of my culture. This is something that I happened to stumble across at a time when it was important to me, and that's part of why I wanted to share it with you guys. So, having gone from not celebrating this as a child, not really knowing anything about it, today, I love Day of the Dead like Jack Skellington loves Christmas. So if you guys haven't seen Jack Skellington's character in The Nightmare Before Christmas, which has nothing to do with Day of the Dead, but it's about a character who's lived his whole life in Halloween Town, and he discovers Christmas. And it touches this place inside of himself that he's going through some rough times, and he finds this thing, and it speaks to him, and his immediate reaction, his first reaction is, this is amazing, and his second reaction is, I gotta tell everybody I know, and that's why you're all here tonight. So this is, we have some rare footage of me in a Mexican supermarket at peak Day of the Dead mania last year.
What's this? What's this? There's color everywhere. What's this? There's white things.
So just picture me rampaging through the aisles going, oh my god, it's Mexican brown sugar and sugar skulls, and I gotta get some Katrinas. And
what's this? What's this? There's something very wrong. What's this? There's people singing songs. What's this? The streets are lined with little creatures laughing. Everybody seems so happy. How am I possibly gonna stop me? What is this? What's this?
Alright, so what's interesting about the movie, he's a skeleton and he's kind of stupid and it all goes pear-shaped and it's hilarious and everybody should watch it. But what's interesting about the movie is what Jack ends up creating is something that it's identifiably Christmas. He's wearing, red with a white beard and he's got reindeer, but it's also super duper Jack. So I brought a lot of resources with me. I brought a ton of children's books because I love children's books, and when I'm just trying to understand something, it's a great place to start. I baked treats that are traditional. But this is going to be, if I screw something up, because I don't speak Spanish at all, I wanted you guys to have the resources come with us to the museum, because what you're going to see tonight is really Day of the Dead Jeremy style, and some of it's going to be kind of screwed up. All right, so I wanted to start a little bit with how we observed Day of the Dead last year. So we set up a little altar, and we got out pictures and videos. We're unspeakably fortunate that in the 21st century we had gigabytes and gigabytes of videos of every stupid thing he ever did. Even as a third child, we had hundreds and hundreds of photos we could go through. And we got on a Skype call with my parents and my brother's family, and we told stories about Daniel. And the best advice I've heard about what to do on Day of the Dead is think about some stories, and the categories you should be thinking of are what are funny stories, or brave stories, or Grandpa did this in the war, things that, it doesn't have to be about their end, it should be about their whole being and about how you want to remember them as a group. And the surprising thing to me out of that was, obviously, we were celebrating a sudden tragic loss. We were observing a sudden tragic loss. So we were there to talk 80% about Daniel, but obviously that's not the only person our family's ever lost. So I asked my parents to share some stories about their parents. Most of 3 of the 4 grandparents on that side have passed on. We'll talk about a different set this year with Emily's parents. And what surprised, I think even surprised my parents, was that wasn't easy for them. They didn't, these are their parents that they've known their whole lives, and it wasn't straightforward for them to tell my children who've never met, this is Grandpa Getz, who by all accounts is probably why I'm funny and sarcastic. And my mom wasn't able to quickly come up with a Grandpa Getz story to pass on to her grandchildren. And it's, in the absence of this kind of tradition, those stories just aren't, over time they become inaccessible. And that's another reason I was in a big hurry I gotta tell everybody, because if you have a little lead time on this, you can start scratching things down. So I've got a short clip here from the Book of Life, which actually is about the Day of the Dead, mostly, and then it's a love story on top of that. But if I were going to encapsulate in 70 seconds the most important thing you could take away about Day of the Dead, and if you're in confirmation class, there's a pop quiz coming, so pay attention. This is absolutely the clip that I would use.
Come, Leo. Your mother would be so proud of you.
You think she'll come back tonight? Carmen is here.
But it's more like a warm feeling you get when loved ones are with you. All of these families have lost someone, but as long as we remember them, we can feel their presence with us for one night each year.
I just thought I might see her one more time. She always smelled like flowers. I remember her singing. She was a good woman, that one. I miss her so much.
Just be still, and you can feel it. Your mother is here, along with all our ancestors. As long as we remember them, they are with us. The moment we forget them, they are truly gone.
I can feel them.
Awesome. All right, so everybody should go out and buy that on Blu-ray as quickly as you can get to the store. And somebody's already got it, so you should go over to their house also. All right, so everything else I'm going to talk about tonight is kind of the trappings of the holiday, like the stuff of the holiday. And it would be pretty easy to get kind of Charlie Brown Christmas about that, like, oh, the marigolds are so commercial this year. So what I want to focus on is, it's very easy with Day of the Dead, except Jan had a stumper for me on why there's orange in the bread. But it's really easy to pull in, this is why we do sugar skulls. This is why we do the marigolds. This is why monarch butterflies are part of it. So I want to talk extra about how this stuff can help you get into that headspace of being close to somebody that you can't touch anymore. And I'm going to pepper in between these with stories about Daniel. And when we're done, I want to invite everybody, if you're comfortable with it, if the spirit so moves you, and you've got 10 or 15 minutes while I wrap up talking to come up with one, to share stories from your own past as well, and share them with a loving, comfortable group here. So remember, funny stories, heroic stories, stories that'll help introduce us to the person the way you want to remember them. So Daniel slept in a folding pack and play next to our bed. Emily knows what this story is. So it's the pack and play, right? It's got a space on the bottom with really high walls, so kids with kind of limited mobility are in a cage. And then this one has an insert on top for kids that are like zero mobility, so they can't get away. And it makes it a lot easier to like throw him in there when he falls asleep, and then pull him back in for breastfeeding, and then throw him back in there in the middle of the night. And Daniel was an amazing. He always woke up chill. So he'd wake up in the middle of the night, and the first thing he would do is he'd just make these little content, hey, Daniel, I'm here. And if you ignored those, then he would break into, I'm hungry. But he'd start out with this, hey. So one night, he starts in, hey. And Emily reaches over, and he's not there. And she jumps up, and she turns on the light, and he's not there at all. But you can only get so freaked out about this because you can still hear him, and he's happy as a clam. And it turns out, when I built it while Emily was in the hospital, so she has deniability in the delivery room, I screwed up and I left a gap in the front. And somehow, a kid who could not roll himself over had squeezed through this little gap and slid down the side and was now inside in the fully enclosed baby cage, just cooing away. And we're urgently taking the top off of it. And he was fantastic. So it's probably not a memorable story for him at all. Well, it's etched in my brain, obviously. So the most important thing to understand about the tone of the Day of the Dead as a holiday is it's not Halloween. So they're boring Catholic missionary reasons why the Aztecs were encouraged to pull their holiday up to November-ish around All Saints' Day, and at the same time the pagans in Europe were encouraged to pull their holiday towards the same Catholic holy day, but they're really tonally divergent. So Halloween's about Frankensteins and Draculas and being scared and getting candy, and Day of the Dead is about death in a really concrete way. So one facet of this is that we're all alike in death. So, and there's a ton of amazing stuff on Pinterest. All of these are, if you guys follow me on Pinterest, I got a giant board of this stuff. I really like this one. So this is a mask that you'd wear in a parade that's patterned off of an incredibly famous etching that was done in the 1910s. So this was Jose Guadalupe Posada. He did political cartoons and he did drawings that would accompany news stories. He did all of them as etchings, and almost all of them were black and white. But his style really set the tone for almost every sugar skull you'll see since the 1910s. Super, super influential guy. So if you happen to not be a time-traveling pre-revolution Mexican, this was hilarious in 1910. So everybody you'd get you buy a copy of this for a peso or whatever, and you look at this, and it was immediately recognizable that this woman with the big hat and feathers, this is a certain kind of society woman. And the joke is, she's all dressed up, but we've all got the same place to go, that we're all ultimately going to be alike. This would be like if you took a super identifiable photo of a Kardashian and turned her into a skeleton. That would just immediately resonate for you. So another facet of this is that the afterlife is fun. The afterlife is non-stop fiesta. And there's some really good scenes of that later on in the Book of Life that, man, it's great. After you're dead, we're not hungry anymore. Everybody's pals. It's fantastic. So a lot of what you end up with on altars and a lot of how people celebrate this, these are called kalacas. And it's one of my favorite words in any language. It just means skeleton, but it's like that kalaka, that tonally, man, it sounds like skeleton. I think it's fantastic. Anyway, so the figures have hobbies, and they dance, and they sing, and they ride horses, and whatever. Fantastic. This one is for a wedding topper for two women getting married. It's spectacular. I like living in a world that has this. A surprising number of, these guys are just partying. This is, look how happy he is. I mean, all they can do is smile, but look how happy he is. And obviously they're very happy too. A surprising number of them are having marital relations, sometimes in a mixed mortality couple. I'll leave that as an exercise to the viewer. And the celebrations can be really, to me, from where I was coming from, really jarringly comfortable with kind of the nuts and bolts of death. So you guys saw this in the Book of Life clip. The whole family, this is super, super, super common in Mexico. The whole family will come out to the cemetery and spend the whole day bringing candles and incense and cleaning and rebuilding and decorating. Marigold flowers we're going to talk about in a second. And then they'll spend the whole night in the cemetery partying, playing music and singing and telling stories about their loved ones in a way that just, if your first response to that was it kind of oofed you out a little bit, that was my first response too. But it's a facet of this holiday that just changes your attitude, that we're all going there. It's not scary. It's not, once you're there, it's not especially sad. And this is a way to be physically close to your loved ones. So Daniel was a real people person. This is a picture of him, actually it's the Sunday right before he passed away. And it's him zonked out on the corner of one of our countryside friends. My mom likes to say, don't tell me who that is, because if I don't know, I can pretend it was me. But when he and I would hang out, he didn't, like there are some kids that it's got to be the Wiggles or it's got to be Sesame Street. Daniel wasn't like that at all. He just wanted to hang out. So he and I watched a lot of Daddy and Eldest Son movies. So His favorite movie was Bloodsport or Terminator or Ip Man. And at night, the easiest way to get him to calm down was we'd put him in bed in between us, and just being around people would chill him out, and he'd fall asleep, and then we'd put him in the death trap. And I vividly remember one night, it's super late at night, I was in a super engrossing book, Emily's been asleep for hours, and I look over, and he's as close to me as Valentine is, ish. And he's reading my book over my shoulder, and just the most content baby in the world, because he was around people. It's just fantastic. So tonight I brought, 50% of our altar at home-ish. Valentine has some stuff out in circulation right now. So, and the stuff you put on is called an ofrenda. And the idea is, some of what goes on it is obvious, right? You'll have pictures of, pictures of the deceased, your loved ones. You put out things that are important. Oh, one of the things I forgot that is on our altar at home, we've got the toy that Valentine and Grandma made, the little ladybug toy, right? That you guys stitched together and totally handmade. It's very beautiful. You put out maybe a tool that was important to them, or jewelry, like I said, toys. Tequila is always appreciated. And you had candles to help them find their way from the spirit realm. And you set out flowers. You can use anything. Marigolds are super typical. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm way away from the microphone. Marigolds are super typical in Mexico, in part because they're available right now, and they're not in Omaha, which was kind of, these are silks. But the orange is Aztec symbolic. In Aztec culture, the orange is symbolic for death. But the perfume is also super, super strong on fresh marigolds. So there's part of the mythology, part of the tradition, is that the scent of the marigolds and the light of the candles are all things that help guide the spirit towards where they're wanted, back towards their family, back towards the rest of the party. You can add religious items, crosses, icons of saints. We had some more of these in the deck. Nope. So it's been fun for me, the more I've read about Day of the Dead, like at a certain level, when you talk about an American holiday, we all celebrate Thanksgiving the same day because we all have to get to Walmart the next day. And it's not like that at all in Mexico with Day of the Dead. So even the date itself, if you look on Wikipedia, it's like, well, November 2nd is the Day of the Dead, except in the places where it's a 3-day fiesta that starts on the 31st, except on the places that differentiate. November 1st is the day of Los Angelitos, of children who have passed away, and the 2nd is for adults. Except in places where there's another third holiday about people who have passed away in armed conflict. So it's been super fascinating for me seeing some of these differences over, and Mexico is also a big country that encompasses a lot of latitude. We'll talk about why that's important in a couple of minutes. In some places in Mexico, the altar is so important that when you build the house, when you build the living room, one wall of the living room is a permanent waist-tall altar all year long. And all year long you've got flowers and pictures of the people you want to remember. And so it's not just, obviously on the day, you get Pan de Muerto and you go crazy, but all throughout the year, that's a part of your practice. So my Calaca toys have started taking over the mantle in the kitchen, so that's what's happening at our house. I wanted to mention the food. So there are 3 interesting things that I've seen. And the first one is, you just make food that your departed loved. You set out a portion, and in some ineffable way, the dead enjoy it. So some places they can take the scent with them. Some places they kind of take the spirit of the food with them. It's okay to eat what the dead can't take with them the next day, but everybody agrees that the dead really got the best part of this deal. The tequila's not as good as it would have been straight out of the bottle. So. Oh, this picture. How's that? Can you get next? Just the space bar of the way. Nope, no one. So this is the first time Daniel got food, and he dug it. Charlotte does not care. Daniel was into it. This is bananas and breast milk. And just going from not food to food was his thing. And there's just a moment here where Emily and I are kind of foodies, so having a kid that was just into, oh my God, there's a whole world of things that didn't come out of a little cylindrical container, he was into it. So on our altar at home, this was bananas mashed up with breast milk. So on our altar, we always have bananas. There's also food you only make on the Day of the Dead. So one of the things that I brought today, and there are 2 pieces left if you're into it, is pan de muerto. And it's a special bread. I've got a picture of it up here. What it should have looked like. Yeah. This is what happens when you put the bones on after the second rise. So, but basically it's a special kind of bread, and it's anise and an orange glaze and sugar on top, and it's rich and it's sweet, but it's also distinctive. It's not something that you're having throughout the rest of the year. There's also sugar skulls, which are literally sugar held together with, I don't know, it's edible, but it may as well be glue. Not my bag, but they're beautiful, and they're a big part of the holiday.
So good, it's spicy.
Last year, because these aren't my bag, last year Valentine and I made sugar cookies, and we stamped them all in a skull pattern and frosted them with just white frosting. And then we got the food coloring markers, and every time we pull a cookie out of the box, we draw a little custom sugar skull face on it, and then eat it. So that was a lot of fun, but it didn't last long enough to get pictures out of it. And the third thing that you do, the third food-related thing that you can do, is make food that just takes a long time to prepare. So one of the reasons that I baked food today, part of it is I love you and I want you to be happy, but part of it is you can spend time and care in the making of this for the holiday and picking a recipe. This is mole, and this is super common to do because it's an agonizing number of ingredients, and it takes a really good recipe. If you look on Pinterest, the second recipe I looked at had 20 ingredients and took 2 days to make. And it's fantastic, and that makes it a special occasion food, but it also, being in that headspace and stirring and chopping, gives you time to be meditative. It's a part of the holiday we're not sitting in front of the TV watching football, we're getting into that headspace where we can think about the people that we love. Yeah. So the last thing in action I wanted to tell you guys about, so if you guys are coming up with stories, we're coming close to that time. And I know some of you guys are going to get whisked away to answer your pop quiz. So the last thing I want to tell you guys about was monarchs. And this is another one that for me was, why would it be monarchs, right? Monarchs have been gone for 2 months now. So butterflies are always a symbol of hope and a symbol of rebirth. And if there's only one thing you learn from The Hungry Caterpillar, which Madeline and I read today, it's butterflies have one life as a terrestrial bug, and they have this other life as an ephemeral, beautiful thing. So butterflies are always kind of a symbol of death and rebirth. But on top of that, are they in here? There's a whole page in Clatterbash. Can you find the page in Clatterbash? So the second part of that, though, is in Mexico, in northern Mexico, monarchs are just showing up now. So you have this thing that is orange, so it correlates with everything else that's that orange, evocative of death color. Oh yeah, here it is. And it's tied into rebirth, and it's showing up at this time. And you start seeing a lot of this. There's actually another really good book, I Remember Abuelito, I Remember My Grandfather, that also pulls this in and kind of uses the monarch as a metaphor. And I think everybody is really clear, like Book of Life was, metaphorically, your loved ones are close tonight. That metaphorically, the butterflies represent your ancestors. And I think it's really an amazing thing. Oh yeah, Valentine is a really good point. So like I said, when I'm coming into something that I just don't understand anything of, I like picking up children's books, partly because I have little kids who want to listen to them, but partly because they really spoon feed it to me, which I like a lot. So in this book, I just want to read you guys just the shortest little passage. All right, so in the town of Pueblo City lives a girl named Conchita. She's come to prepare an altar for her twin sister, Rosita. Because if you have twins, you have to give them rhyming names. Together, they used to laugh and play until little Rosita passed away. So Conchita makes an altar for her sister so she can show her how much she missed her. And so the very first time I read this, without the kids, I went, oh my God, she died on the second page! Which was obviously a really stupid conclusion because it's a book about the Day of the Dead. Of course it's going to be full of dead people. It's just one of those things that as I get further into the holiday, as I try and make this more a part of myself, kind of adjusting that attitude of, yeah, obviously she's sad, and obviously she's doing something productive with that. She's connecting with her sister. The whole story is about Rosita, the living sister, spending the whole day preparing, and these are the foods that we cooked, and these are the flowers that I picked for you, and still having her sister as a part of her life. So that was my little moral or emotional journey reading this book targeted at 5-year-olds. This one's a really fun one. Almost everything I brought today is available from OPL. One of them is from my private collection, but OPL has a ton of great resources if you guys are interested in it. Let's see, where do we leave off? Do you have my notes? Thank you guys for playing along. All right, so I hope I passed on a little spark of, so once you get that butterfly is a note that you can pull from. One of the things that I love about Day of the Dead is the art style is not super professional. It's not, let's buy an animatronic Santa Claus from China. It's a lot of things, even the professionally made things, want this handmade, this you could do it participatory art style, which I really like about it, because this is about 2 steps higher than I'm capable of producing, which is fantastic. So don't be embarrassed about a lot of, this guy I made myself, and we're gonna do a batch more of them this year, and the little candelabra I made myself. It can be a very participatory holiday, and that's part of why I wanted you guys to have the opportunity to make a little sugar skull, and I think you guys are gonna bring them down and be able to hang them up in the Core 56 room, that's available to you. So I hope I passed on a little spark of, we'll share that if other people want to see this one afterwards. This is Valentine and I's favorite. This one came out this year. It's called Ghosts by Raina Telgemeier, and it's fantastic. If you're Valentine, it's perfect when you're 7. In general, I'd say if you're about 10 years old, this is a spectacular introduction to the topic.
It's almost done.
My closing comment was, the Day of the Dead for me is a way to remind yourself that you're part of one great family, unbroken, moving through time. There are ancestors that you've never met, and their descendants will never meet you, that you're still connected to with bonds of love. And the Day of the Dead is a way to consciously reach out along those bonds, and a promise that others will reach out that way to you. So, do you guys want to round up the kids? Are they taking off now?
Yeah. Yep.
Confirmation going to Memorial Hall.
Thank you, Hermie.
I like this one a lot. That's why I put it on. Thanks. Is it? Oh, where she blows a kiss? Oh, and then they all start talking.
You're creative, you have so much energy. We're gonna need you to help us think and plan how to make Day of the Dead come alive, so to speak, in Countryside, right?
Get a candle and light it.
Lots of ideas like that, yes, yes. So anyway, I'm Jan Brown, and I am the Pastoral Care Coordinator. Does anybody know what that means? No. What do you think it means? Just shout out an idea. What does it mean?
You take care of the pastors.
Yes.
We take care of the church and the rest of the religion around the world. But it's mainly Nebraska because that's where we live.
Okay, anybody else? Pastoral Care Coordinator, yes. You had an idea, and it's gone. That happens to me. Yes.
Like, past ideas for their sermon?
No, I don't give the pastors ideas for the sermons, but I would like to. Yes.
You coordinate the care of the pastors?
You guys are you're working around the edges, yeah.
You help coordinate like what the church does. It's not like pastoral.
That's what I was saying.
What the church actually does.
Like the caring part. Yes, that's it. Nice. Okay. I do meet with the pastors once a week, that's true, and what we do in those meetings is we talk about people who are hurting, They might be in a hospital, they might be in a nursing home, they might be your age and there's been a recent injury. We talk about people who have lost somebody due to death, and we decide amongst us, how are we going to care for that person? Who needs to go visit them? Who needs to help them plan a funeral? Who needs to prepare a meal for somebody who just had a baby because they don't have any time to cook right now? So pastoral care means the heart, the caring part of all the work that a church does, and all of you are part of it. In a way, you're all doing pastoral care. Have you ever heard of something called peer counseling or peer helping in your schools? Yeah. Okay, so think of it that way. Pastoral care is, I lead a team of people who reach out and help each other when life gets hard. So that means, for example, tomorrow I'm going to make sure that we're ready for FAME, F-A-M-E. Do you know what FAME is?
Yeah, you
You know what FAME is?
and being popular.
Yeah, that FAME means being popular. It stands for Fine Arts and Music Education. And see those tables over there, and the big rectangle by the windows? So on Friday mornings, about 25 people come, and they have art supplies. And it's kind of like an old people art therapy group. A lot of them have memory problems, but some of them don't. They just love to be together. It's kind of like their small fellowship group. And so they write cards to people, they draw posters. Have you ever noticed the countryside has Christmas cards that are handmade that you can buy during Advent? Have you ever noticed that? Those are made by the FAME group. So actually there's pretty talented artists. So I don't lead the group, that's done by 2 other people, but I make sure that things are ready for them. Tomorrow we have a funeral at 2 o'clock, and I'll help with that. I don't conduct the funeral, that's either Eric or Chris, but I help make sure that the people are taken care of, and if there needs to be food or cookies, I help the team that does that. So, have you heard of Stephen Ministers?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, you have. You know what does Stephen Minister do? Do you know?
They help people who are going through a difficult time.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And a Stephen Minister is not a minister, but they are trained, it takes 50 hours, and they are trained how to listen, walk with somebody as a Christian, and be their companion during difficult times, like he said. So I oversee that program. Right now we have about 24 Stephen Ministers, so whenever there's an issue in the church, they might call me and say, Jan, I need to get a Stephen Minister for this person, or I need one. So right now we have about 20 Stephen Ministers that are helping people individually. It's kind of like peer counseling in a way, but... So, I also get to work with volunteers in something called a care team. My care team writes cards for people. They make baby blankets for people. They cook meals for people. They make phone calls and they go on visits for people who can't come to church because they're old or sick. The care team is really important because they're volunteers. They're probably your parents and your grandparents. They probably are people that you know. And they're doing a lot of love and they're representing Christ to these people who for some reason or another need it right now. Okay? So Stephen Ministry, the care team, helping with FAME, helping people when they're struggling, that's what I do. Any questions? Guess what I used to do? Do you know Abby? I knew your mom a long time ago when we were in graduate school together learning to be counselors. I used to be a school counselor. Before that I was a drama and English teacher, so I worked in high schools. I worked at Lincoln Northeast and at Millard South. So when this job opened up, like, sounds kind of like something I could do. And I love countryside. I love helping people. So I've been doing it since April. I wondered, actually, this is the weirdest thing. Last night before I went to bed, and Will just asked me to do this. Was it yesterday? I don't remember. It was yesterday, right? Anyway, 2 or 3 days ago, when I was trying to go to sleep, I had, for some reason, you guys came into my mind. I'm like, why is pastoral care just for adults? Why can't we have pastoral care branches for kids and teenagers, young adults, more than we do? You know what, if you're a creative person and you have some ideas on that, I would love to meet with you. I'd love to meet with you. Come see me. My office is just down the hall by the gym. Okay? How can pastoral care meet the needs of kids who are hurting too, and not just the needs of adults who are hurting? Okay? All right, that's your homework. You can think about that. Yes, Mr. Howell.
Does the board do anything that you don't do?
Oh yes, I forgot to talk about the pastoral care board. There are about 9 or 10 people on the board, and they serve between 2 and 3 years at a time. And they help with different things. Like, did you come to the cake walk at Oktoberfest? Anybody get a cake? Seems like I saw you there.
I did.
I think a couple of you some of you got 2 cakes or something, right? Pastoral Care Board organized the cake walk. Pastoral Care Board helps me oversee the student ministers. They help me oversee the care team. They might be writing cards and going on visits and doing a lot of that themselves. But something really important that they do is something called agape. Agape meaning love, unconditional love. The agape team serves meals at funerals. So the care team helps with the agape team too. And that's all part of Pastoral Care Board. So kind of like I have Stephen Ministers, I have Pastoral Care Board, and then I have a lot of volunteers and I do some of my own stuff. Okay? Does that answer it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And why did you decide to apply for the position of coordinator of pastoral care? You were a happy school counselor.
I was retired, so I was getting bored, basically. But you know, I give credit to my basset hound named Winston. Winston gets a lot of credit and blame in my life. So every morning I have to walk. You guys know what a basset hound looks like, right? They have those great big long ears, and they look pathetic, like they're always going to cry. And I just love Winston. He is my buddy. Every morning Winston and I take walks, but he's very slow, so it's almost like I drag him. So here, come on, Winston. So basically, I take Winston for a drag every morning. But it's good sometimes to be slow, because then you have time to think. So I knew this job opening was there because Margie Bolte, who used to have this job, talked to me about it. And I've been thinking about it, and I've been praying about it, and it's almost like God said to me when I was walking Winston, well, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do with your life, Jan? Why don't you apply? It was almost like a whisper encouraging me to go ahead and apply so that I could serve in this way. So I guess it's Winston's fault.
What about the job that attracted you to it?
I love helping people. I've spent 30 years counseling or teaching, and one of the things I love to do is help people when they're suffering or when someone has died. It's I'm not afraid of it. I've had a lot of losses, and I feel that that's a gift I can give.
And how was it switching from mostly working with kids to mostly working with older people?
Adults are more stubborn because they're set in their ways, right? You guys might think you're stubborn, and maybe your parents tell you you're stubborn, but really you're not as stubborn as adults. So if there's any change or any new thing, it's most likely going to happen with young people. So that's one thing that's a little bit harder, is people are set in their ways. But I love the staff here. The ministers are just as nice as you would think that they are. I get to work with Will and Rebecca and Kelly Keller and really creative people every single week, and that's been a blast.
be on the board of pastoral care.
You do? You want to be on the board? Oh,